Magic the Gathering.
Magic, 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 I'm so magic.
Gathering magic.
Spend a lot of money on cards.
Playing cool cards with my friends.
Playing all so magic.
We're all winners in the end.
I got to play against Luke's Sliver deck, which is really interesting. Also main boards, Meddling Mage, like you mentioned.
Yeah, hell yeah.
The big one, there's a sliver that gives all slivers Shroud. I forget which one that is. They're all something sliver.
Yeah.
Yeah, that between that and Meddling Mage actually makes that deck pretty interesting to play against, because there's certain points where I felt like
I think it's
kind of locked out by it, and it's like the only way of getting around it is certain edict effects or something like that.
perfectly timed edicts,
right?
Because otherwise they have too many shitter slivers,
right?
You know?
So yeah, it was pretty fun. And then Luke tried playing Stifle Knot and was just did not vibe with it.
No,
it's funny because like with Legacy, he was like, "Oh, I want to do 8 cast," the mono blue, affinity deck or whatever. And then he didn't like that at all. And he's like, for pre-modern, I'm going to do the mono blue combo deck. And I'm like, that didn't work out so well the first time around. Let's so he played it once and abandoned Stifle Knot immediately.
I think I'll play with him, and because I don't know if he like didn't understand it or not, because it's a lot, especially in pre-modern, it's a lot of like land go, and so if Luke is not ready for that, because he only plays commander really, and so it's like this it's this like every turn I need to put value on the board and like start accelerating because everyone else is doing it,
right?
So you just like slowly build up. Pre-modern is so anticlimactic sometimes,
and we had that conversation a little bit. Our last episode was about exploring the other constructed formats of Magic, and we were just talking about learning, kind of to your point of like, if you only play commander, you aren't really familiar with the general like approach to playing certain cards or the sequencing of playing certain cards when you're 1v1. Like a counterspell or your Force of Wills, which is what he struggled with in 8 cast. He's expressing like, I would force something and my opponent would just be like, haha, you forced the wrong thing.
Well, yeah, I mean, he's brand new. How do you know?
Exactly.
You gotta learn.
Exactly. And that's the same thing with like, when you're opting or when you're digging for your combo pieces, or even the mulligan. A mulligan is huge.
Yeah.
Your first hand that you draw in
Stifle Knot for sure.
Yeah.
The best practice is that every time your opening hand always has to have A or B. It needs a Stifle Knot or a Vision Charm or a Stifle.
Yep.
You need to have that, and then it's kind of like determining everything else.
Exactly.
And like if he doesn't know these heuristics, because you guys don't really play, like it's like you gotta learn somehow, and that's how. So like that's why like I want to definitely play with him while he's playing Stifle Knot, or have him watch me play Stifle Knot, because it's that, and like like don't you have Stasis together?
No, I don't.
Oh, I'll borrow my friend's Stasis deck, and we'll do Stifle Knot versus Stasis.
That would be so
like
fun.
This is what pre-modern is, Luke. Like this is I see this all the time.
I think that's like
it would flip his world. He would have to it's like learning a brand new game. Well, because he plays a lot of fighting games, so it's like, all right, you were playing footsies, with these Street Fighter characters. Like now we're doing some Marvel shit. Like people are bouncing around, shooting projectiles all the time. And if you get hit once, you die. Like that's kind of like how pre-modern can be. Like that big shift.
Yeah,
it's just gotta learn that kind of stuff. And if you don't appreciate that, then I understand. But you gotta see the dance.
Yeah, and we did. We went back and forth a little bit. He played a game or two with it, and then I played a game or two with it, kind of like you were saying. And he just would look at cards like Chain of Vapor, or or even just Vision Charm, which is, like you said, part A of the combo, and just not fully get it, not fully grasp it. And I think that's
because did anyone teach him? Did anyone lay the deck out and explain how this works, like what your game plan is?
Before we didn't just jump into it. He was the one who picked the deck, and I was like, "Are you sure?" He was like, "Yeah." And then I ran him through the full.
I pushed him. I pushed him real hard to try, because when I told him he was getting into it, it's like, "Yeah, man, Slivers is sick." You should build that, but you should also like pick a top tier.
Yeah,
get one of them.
And that's
and Stifle Knot. I think Luke would really appreciate if because he's patient Ryu master. Like I think he could appreciate the learning what land go means and how like interesting it is.
Right.
Like especially when he's faster at it, get some reps in. Like you'll see there's some really cool stuff to do with that deck.
Yeah, I think getting reps in is the key there. Right? Is like it's a little maybe a little bit intimidating at first, but I mean, there's a reason why it's top tier deck. It's like it's good. It's just a good deck, and also just the dance.
The power
really
level
fun.
and the oppression. Yeah, the power level of it and the oppression it has. Like, so I'll tell you, my big secret brew this whole 3 weeks I've been doing a fuck ton of work into. I'm now like putting to rest because the mere existence of Vision Charm makes it like impossible to win the most popular deck, the best decks. It makes it impossible to beat it. Doomsday cannot beat Vision Charm. It's target player mill 4 cards.
Oh right,
is
that's
fucked
right.
Up. It's really ass because Doomsday, unlike Legacy, is traditionally played as this like let me make 5 like a 5-card pile that's like a big combo, or like I slowly work through my way through my pile and do a thing. It's not cycle Cavern of Souls, Thassa's Oracle, 0 interaction, like space for interaction after you resolve Doomsday, like it is in Legacy and Vintage even.
Right.
It's this very oh god, cat, come on.
Lily has some thoughts on Vision Charm.
Yeah, she does. She's just like me. But like the mere existence of Stifle Knot means you can never deal with it. Like the suite in the deck, the design was playing 4 copies of Duress, 3 copies of Cabal Therapy, but then you would also play Unmasked. So you're like this like super heavy hand discard. But it's just like, what do I do when I lose to Stifle, lose to Vision Charm, lose to counter spells? Like what's left in the shrimp is bugs. What's left? what is left to do when that whole deck is just that? It's just combos that kill you immediately. If you can't Doomsday and pass against Stifle Knot no matter what, because even if you're at 20, you Doomsday pass, go to 10. It's like, all right, I'll kill you with this 12/12. It's like, okay,
yeah, right.
This is what it is. Yeah,
I know there were a couple of games where I think I was just playing elves or something. I was just playing whatever I had. It might have even been Oath, which Oath is actually a kind of funny matchup because if you can get your Terravor out, it can actually just be straight up.
Oh, you're talking Terravor. You're talking Terravor. Okay.
Yeah, with Terravor, you can have a bigger, badder, potentially bigger, badder creature than the Dreadnought. So it was kind of fun.
Sure. Yeah. No, it's good that those are right. There are lots of like weird fringe decks that interact with Stifle Knot in a way that's, but like a lot of the other like brews and even some top tiers, Stifle Knot is such a bully. Just the counterspell suite alone, gosh, is so tough to beat. Like they're gonna have double counterspell that's probably free with like foil in a daze most times.
Well, I'll definitely keep it together. I'll keep it, I'll keep it all proxied up so we can run it back with it and see if we can change Luke's mind on Stifle Knot.
Was that did he play Mono Blue Tide? Did he play Tide, Parallax Tide main board or the sideboard for his Oath deck?
Or
not Oath deck. I'm sorry, Stifle Knot deck.
I think it's side. Let me double check. I've got because he just sent me a list, and I think I just it's sideboard. It's sideboard.
Sideboard. Yep. Okay, 1 or 2, or a couple.
It's got
more,
3.
Even.
3 on sideboard.
3. Hell yeah.
Parallax Tide.
Yeah, that's also like a. Did you explain to him that game plan at all? Like how that works?
A little bit, but I mostly wanted him to get a hold of like the whole Vision Charm, Stifle, Phyrexian Dreadnought.
The AB combo.
Yeah. So
I think when we play next, I'll just like replace those cards with literal big giant playing cards that say A and then the other one says B, and we don't read them.
Yeah,
and we just focus on everything else. Just be like, well, if you have AB and 2 mana, you win. That we don't need to talk about it.
Yeah.
We just assume that that's what goes on.
Yeah, no, that's super fair. I think that's a really fair approach to learning.
Play it the other way around. Yeah, because like I don't know if he can like that's hard to conceptualize. It's like you mean I could tide someone and kill them with my lands, like my 2/2 lands the entire time? It's like absolutely. You will beat them to death with 2 2/2s.
Yep. Well, I think this is a good point to maybe jump right into the show. If that sounds good to you. So hello and welcome to Wild Dogs Podcast, a show inspired mostly by our love for the game known as Magic the Gathering. I'm your host, Leland, and with me here today is our special guest, Taylor.
Hello.
What's up, Taylor?
I'm big chillin'. How are you?
Doing well. So, yeah, thanks for stopping by and listening to us ramble about all things Magic. Typically, Taylor, we jump into a Wild Dogs updates where we talk about kind of what we've been up to lately. For me, I've been building Hashaton. It's this new Esper zombie commander. Are you familiar with Hashaton? Yeah, it's Hashaton, Scarab's Fist.
Hashaton.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, wait a minute. Is this the brand new one?
Yeah, the brand new one from Ether Drift.
Think about, I've got opinions on this guy too.
Oh, he's so busted.
I'm building him a legacy.
Ooh, I'm eager to hear your list for legacy because I've got a lot of thoughts there. But for 1 and a black, you get a 1/3 legendary zombie wizard. Whenever you discard a creature card, you may pay 2 and a blue. If you do, create a tapped token that's a copy of that card, except it's a 4/4 black zombie. So initially, when I was first approaching this deck, I was just gonna, because I got the precon, and I was just gonna flip the commanders and then change out a few cards, right?
Sure.
That didn't happen. Of course, I went all in with Hashaton. I had to find all the cool, goofy creatures to, cheat onto the board that aren't zombies. I was trying to do a zombie deck with Hashaton, and it's just not the best. By comparison,
you don't care about the tribe. Doesn't actually really matter.
Yeah, exactly.
Versus maybe a 4/4 Atraxa seems pretty good.
Exactly. I'm running because it's commander. I have to stick to Esper, but I've got stuff like
that's great. Esper colors is more than
it's perfect. So I've got Arcana Cruelty, Metamorphosis Fanatic. I've got stuff like Dream Trawler, even, which I'm super stoked on. An old Theros rare. I've got, just a bunch of weird, funky stuff to cheat onto the board, which should be fun.
Sun Titan will be really funny because you can discard cards and then bring those things back.
Yeah, the one that I have in that place is a card called Guardian Scalelord. It's a commander card from March Against the Machine. It's a dragon that whenever it attacks, you get to return target non-land permanent card with mana value X or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. So similar to Sun Titan, but it's going to be a 4/4. It's base 4/4, and then you've got a couple zombie lords in the mix there to pump it up even more.
Sure.
Reanimate your, whatever you want, really. So, there's some cool, fun stuff to do with Hashaton. I'm very stoked on him. Yeah, what's your legacy idea with Hashaton?
What's really funny about Lions? It gives you 3 mana in one color.
I know.
You gotta discard cards. But what if I discard an Atraxa with my Lion's Eye Diamond? And then I just pay 3 right away to make another one. And then I draw in my Atraxa, I reveal Lion's Eye Diamond and another Atraxa. And then I do it again. Why not? You could just keep chaining them together because Atraxa is a busted fucking card.
Oh yeah.
But you could do these things where you're just chaining these together with Atraxas or setting up more protection. I don't know if it's gonna be good. Mm-hmm. It's relying on a 1/3. In response to the trigger, in response to Lion's Eye Diamond, I can get screwed over. Yeah. So as long as it lives for the Lion's Eye Diamond to crack, it's pretty good. Mm-hmm. It'll be interesting. The colors are tough. The colors are white, black is weird. Could fit into a Moxen, Mox Opal, Chrome Mox kind of pattern. We'll have to see.
Are you thinking of running a full playset of Psychic Frog too? Is kind of your alternate discard outlet?
Psychic Frog is banned.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Yes. That's right. We're talking about legacy here. That's right.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Otherwise, yeah.
Well,
that's cool. I'm excited to see what you put together for legacy.
Yeah. As far as what I've been up to in legacy, I'm playing Paradoxical Outcome. Just went 3-0 at my last event, playing with glaring Fleshraker and just a bunch of the One Ring mixed with it's what's that card called? Shoot, edit this out. What's the 4-mana artifact that you can play at the top? Mystic Forge. Mystic Forge. Yeah. Also playing it with Mystic Forge. So I just kind of carve through my entire deck and just keep munching 1 point at a time with Glaring Fleshraker. It's very funny.
That's super.
Because then you cast a PO for like 20. Just pick your whole deck up.
Yeah, were you initially, because I remember playing against, you had a Glaring Fleshraker deck before, were you doing like more of the Eldrazi combo approach before moving to Paradoxical Outcome?
No, this was right before Eternal Weekend.
Right.
Vexing Bauble was banned along with Frost. And so the game plan with that deck was Karn. Or you would find so you would assemble basically like either a Mycosynth Lattice Lock, or you would find enough mana to make a enormous Walking Ballista, or just you would just dominate in card advantage because you'd be using the One Ring, abusing the shit out of that with the mana you get from Fleshraker, and it was a pretty crazy deck. Urza Saga tokens go burr,
Right.
It was very, very strong.
Yeah,
but that's gone.
There's also a really powerful Eldrazi combo deck in Modern right now that is the Basking Brood Scale with what's it called?
I saw that's dominating Pauper.
Blade of the Blood Chief. Oh, it's Pauper as well?
I think it's the best deck in Pauper right now,
wow.
if I'm not mistaken. Yeah.
That's wild.
I don't know how they do it, but it's an infinite combo. It's a very Splinter Twin situation.
Interesting. I'll have to check that out.
Yeah.
That sounds sweet. Yeah, in Modern, it's also Walking Ballista, Glaring Fleshraker, Kozilek's Command, all that good stuff. It's pretty cool.
Kozilek's Command is a pretty messed up card.
Yeah.
Yesterday, I was on Tuesday. I was playing against Death and Taxes, and I tap my One Ring, and I'm trying to draw 4 cards. He goes, in response, I'll activate my Aether Vial for 3. Bring in my tutor. I forget the 3-drop. What's that 3-drop 1/2 that you find a creature with power with toughness 2 or less?
Recruiter of the Guard.
Recruiter of the Guard.
Yeah.
Activate Vial. Put Recruiter of the Guard in. Go get Bowmaster. Cast Bowmaster. And I go, okay. Bowmaster resolves. I'll tap these lands for mana. Kozilek's Command. I'll exile your Bowmaster, and then I'll also scry you and try guard, or just like I'll make 2 Scion, like little Scion spots. Like, all right, yeah, good try.
Yeah, right.
Not beating that. It's fucked up.
Yeah, the card's wild.
I don't know why my removal card is also like a really powerful tutor effect, but then also like a really powerful like mana acceleration and blockers effect. And colorless.
Win con, if you got the Glaring Fleshraker on board, you just create all the Eldrazi spawn or whatever.
The card is messed up. Should be banned.
Yep.
Should be banned.
Yep. Cool. Moving on to WOTC news, we've got Aether Drift is officially out this weekend. Taylor, you mentioned you went and did pre-release. How did that go?
I did. It was fun. I went 2-2, I think.
Okay.
I played against someone I went with round 1, and I kind of got really lucky. Rounds 2, I played against a guy who got like the Chase like mythic rare thing that it's like a 2/4 flyer that makes it so that whenever any flying artifacts you control deal damage to a player, you draw a card. They also just so happen to get 3 of the blue common that's like 4 mana, 3/2, create a 1/1 flying Thopter token. 3 of those with that foil of a mythic is like interesting. Very interesting. That's a very interesting pre-release package you got there. Pretty insanely cool combo.
Yeah, that's like I did like a sealed event for Innistrad Remastered, and I had the worst possible sealed pool.
I got 2 lands as my rares too. Yeah, it was pretty epic.
Yeah, super epic for actually playing sealeds. But that's just how it goes sometimes with pre-release. Yeah,
there is some pretty bomb card stuff like Grim Bobble. Really awesome to have a thing that hangs out, so then you can sacrifice it to other things. Great synergy there.
It's super sick.
Crown Catcher Specialist. It's a 2-drop 2/1 with haste, and then it also is exhaust for 4 mana to put 2 counters on it. Pretty hard to like deal with.
Mm-hmm.
Real strong stuff. I enjoyed it. It's very bomby, but that's kind of how I enjoy it. I'm no good limited player at all, so I can't attest to how good or fun it is for better players. But as my smooth brain plays limited, I thought it was super fun.
Well, that's good.
I got 4 Chitin Gravestalkers. I wish those are actually pretty funny.
Oh yeah, is that the one where it's like cost reduction and it's like a 5/4 menace or something?
Yeah, no menace. It's just a big 5/4, but it has cycling, and then this costs 1 less for each artifact and creature in your graveyard. So like the Bobble was good synergy, a lot of cool shit. 3 of those guys were they're nice bullies, It's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
So my losses were to some like crazy, like, oh god, there's this 2/2 that exhausts to make a 4/4. He got 2 of them in his pool. It's a rare card, and then he also got the 5-drop 8/8 with upside. I think it's like trample and it can cycle or something.
Oh yeah, the dinosaur or whatever.
Yeah, just lost because it's just like, all right, I'll use my exile because I also had like 3 different like spot remove, like really great spot removal, some some R's and bread, and I can't like keep up with just how many insane like threats that the guy had.
Right.
So it's like, all right, cool.
Well, yeah, we should maybe try to draft this with the squad. I think that'd be really fun. It's been a while since we've done like a little seal.
Well, Luke, I heard Luke said he does not like doing some draft or limited.
I know it's so heartbreaking.
It's hard.
So heartbreaking.
Well, it's a lot of time commitment to just put an unplayable deck together. You got to like learn. You got to.
Yeah.
It's frustrating.
That's true. It's part of the fun of it, though. I just like opening packs and building whatever. I'm a big limited guy. So. And then we've got MagicCon Chicago this weekend as well.
It is this weekend.
Are you going? You're going to be there on Friday?
No, I'm not gonna. I'm too poor. School, just it's too. Also, what you pay for what you get is, edit that out. Don't dox.
Yeah, you doxed yourself. Keeping that in. No, I'll edit that out. Yeah. But yeah, no, I know what you mean. I totally know what you mean. Like, it was really fun, and I'm going down for Saturday because it's my birthday.
Hell yeah!
So
I heard.
Gonna be with my fam in Chicago. We got a nice hotel, and we're making like a family trip out of it too. So having that as well as being able to go to the con.
Are you bringing
a few hours?
Are you bringing the wife and kid?
I am bringing the wife and kid. They'll be shopping with grandma and a couple of my brothers and stuff like that. While me and my dad and a couple of my brothers were actually going to the con. So.
Fun.
Yeah, it'll be fun, but yeah, I know what you mean. Like it is expensive. It is like a road trip. It is like there's a lot of costs involved for kind of what you get.
Yeah, but I went last year and we drove there, and it was easy to do that. It's really just like I can't imagine spending $200 to like actually not like want to do anything there. Like I would sign up for a legacy event, but even then, like I'm burnt out on these like large legacy events.
Right.
So it's just like I don't know.
Yeah,
especially no winning painting this year. It's just like
I'm mostly going just for the signatures and maybe a couple of the presentations. Go see.
Yeah, you'll have to go get my. I'll have to hand you my show and tells. I really want those.
And those will be super easy. Lobenstein's line is usually not crazy long because he's got a pretty finite pool of cards for art he's done. Yeah. Some really iconic art, but yeah,
not a lot of it.
Yeah, exactly. So his line's usually pretty quick. So I can definitely get that done for you.
Hell yeah! You getting anything else signed from him?
Let me take a peek at my list. I'm trying to think. I actually don't own the OG show and tell, which is weird. I've got a couple of like the newer, more random arts.
Mm-hmm. They're much cheaper. They're. I understand.
I had a last year. I had him sign a molting harpy. I don't know if you're familiar with that card at all. Look it up. Just look at the art.
Oh yeah, I know this one. Yeah.
So I had him sign a foil molting harpy, and he was probably just like, "What the hell, man?" All right, Lobenstein. This year it's the same thing where I just have one card. It's the DCI promo of Scragnoth.
Scragnoth.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that guy.
So
I can get recurring. He does recurring nightmare too.
Oh yeah.
I want to get those signed.
Yeah, just send me with some stuff. That's probably the one.
Wow.
Easy one that I can do for you is get recurring nightmare.
You can get Luke's clot sliver if that's what he's playing. In pre-modern side.
Yeah. I don't know. Excellent. We'll see. But I don't know. MagicCon's fun. I'm excited to get some cards signed.
Yeah,
and hang out in Chicago.
I think it's gonna be a real special one because it's the first time they're unveiling
the new Commander brackets. A nice segue there, Taylor.
Yeah, look at that.
Yeah, the main topic today, obviously, is what are the new Commander brackets, which they are going to try and test out in Chicago as, I guess, like Commander brackets beta is what it's called. So what are the Commander brackets? They exist for the purpose of helping players kind of assess the power levels of their decks in order to matchmake in settings mostly beyond their play group, but even within your play group. I know sometimes within our play group, Taylor, like we'll all bring decks and, someone will bring a precon, you'll bring your new, which I think is fairly, we can talk about our individual decks or a couple of our individual decks and like where they rank in this new system.
Absolutely. Well, it's very clearly defined. That's the wonderful part about it. So there's no debate. I mean, Rule 0 exists, but there's no debate that your game changers are game changers.
Yeah, it's so easy.
You gotta count those numbers,
so easy to parse. Before we get into all that, this bracket system, it consists of 5 total categories, starting with bracket 1, which is exhibition, quote unquote. And a lot of these quotes are linked to Gavin Verhey. He's kind of leading this new commander committee for Wizards. Now that it's Wizards, it's a Wizards sanctioned format, or like they're in charge of Commander. So he put out a video and kind of explained everything. So I'm going to run through all these brackets and just kind of have it from the source, kind of what their perspective is of what all these brackets mean. So bracket 1 is exhibition, your ultra casual commander deck. Bracket 2 is core, which is equivalent to your average current precon, commander precon deck. You've got 3, which is upgraded, which goes beyond the strength of your average precon deck. Number 4 is optimized, which is high power commander. There's 0 restrictions. And then tier 5 is just CEDH. So it's high power with a very competitive and metagame focused mindset. So I guess before we dive into like the specifics of some of these, kind of what's your gut reaction just like looking at this new system?
Excellent. I think 0 out of 10 is way worse than 0 out of 5. That is a good small number. That makes it easier to categorize things.
Mm-hmm.
I like it. I think it's really good. I think it's perfect for the conundrum that is this like made up format that has like absorbed the entire game, where it's just been this crazy Wild West, and now they feel the right to put out these brackets, and I think it's great. I mean, like 5 whole brand new formats is really what you got to think about it as, and so like. There's never been like, well, I mean, there have, but like, there's not really a lot of like dedicated casual role play format. Like, I think that is, which again has like taken over Magic, and I think that's like very cool, and it exists. I don't want to get into other shit, but like it's very good for what it is. I love it. I also hate it. Like, there's a lot of there's a lot of like bullshit that's going to get involved in this, where it's these justifications. And I guess we could take it at like one topic at a time, but I do want to like talk about some of the individual things that they put on Game Changers and certain like concepts as like, we could talk about one at a time. Is there anything you want to talk about first when it comes to the individual brackets?
Yeah, I think we should maybe just like kind of give a quick overview of like what each bracket consists of, and maybe some of the decks that might fit into each of those brackets. And then, maybe diving into the Game Changers list, which is, we should, I guess, introduce that, is a current list of, there are 40 cards currently that are considered game warping due to their power level. So you're only limited to having 3 of those Game Changers in bracket 3. And then...
Can you send me the link? I need to look at these while I'm doing this again.
Yeah.
Oh, no. It's in our Discord.
We can start at 1. So with 1 and 2, and I'm just real quick for the Game Changers, that 40 card list, you can't have them in 1 and 2. You can have up to 3 of them in category 3. And then for 4 and 5, it's unlimited. You can have as many Game Changers as you want. So I think those are kind of the guiding force for determining the quote unquote power level of your deck moving forward. And I think it's at a baseline like this. I think this is a good starting point, maybe. And then we'll see as they add more lists or add more cards to the Game Changers list, or take cards away, or change how many you can have at 3 or 2 or whatever. But I think this is for like a beta test of this system. I think it's pretty solid as is.
I like it.
Yeah, let's jump into the brackets themselves. So bracket 1, which is exhibition, here are the rules for bracket 1. no mass land denial or extra turns, no 2-card infinite combos, no game changers, and few tutors. This is maybe one of the things I take issue with categories 1 and 2. I think there should be, and maybe they just add more tutors to the game changers list. But as of right now, you can run a worldly tutor in a bracket 1 deck. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Maybe we should just talk about like the concept before we talk about like the bracket of just individual things that they put on. Like just the concept of few tutors is a key word.
Right.
Not even just for exhibition, but just talk about that.
Sure. Yeah.
I think I understand your want to have like there more tutors get added to the game changers list. But the problem with that is that, and especially in the last like 7 years where Commander's been like the number 1 format, the amount of cards they print that are just really bad tutors, but are tutors is extremely high. So it doesn't matter how good or bad the tutor, like some of them are just outrageously good. Like Vampiric Tutor and Demonic Tutor are just like powerful vintage playable cards that like what you get for what you pay in is like, you know, beyond outrageous, like just completely misunderstanding the way the game is going to be played and limiting design space. And so those make sense to be on game changers. But like, what's that tutor that has flashback that you can cast for like, you know, like 4 mana and then the flashback is like 7 mana?
Oh, is it the black one?
Yeah, it's got a guy with a big goat horn.
Yeah.
What's that card called?
I forget what it's called, but I know what you're talking about. Yeah, no.
There's so many tutors that like that it doesn't matter how many you add to the it's also just the concept. Like, and this is one of the things I take a big issue with the number 1 category, but also, and I kind of want to talk about this more, it's more important for number 2, is that like any amount of tutors, in my opinion, has always been like my big yuck.
Right.
And you guys know this because I'm very proud to not play any.
Yeah.
But and we'll talk about it before. Well, again, it's not like I'm proud of it. Like as in, like I'm so excited that I'm a special boy that doesn't play no tutors.
Right. No,
it's just more of like what I consider to be 0.5 is what I want to have. Like I think that there's a world where you could have 2s and 3s with no tutors, and that's a very interesting Commander game to explore because Commander, you don't want to homogenize the format with tutors. Like just being able to find all of your things. And find your 3-card combo with all tutors and ABC combo, like that's going to be an interesting exhibition game. You know, like I can almost assure you at ChicagoCon when they test this, somebody who isn't me, because I'm not going. So if it does happen, no one can like at me and be like, "You're the terrorist who did this." Somebody can go in these exhibition where everyone's like, "I'm playing all chairs EDH." Like, here's my special story about this, and I go, hilarious. Here's my 3-card all tutors combo, and I just shred through these tables just to ruin ruin role players' days. You know, it can be that is a very weird thing to have and not explore that. You know, if you like, but that's the thing though. It's like I'm coming at it from like if people paid money to play exhibition matches, which you don't.
No,
you know? Like it won't happen. But like someone could just be that guy just for fun in Chicago. You know, the opportunity is there. We have a Falco Masters situation where anyone could just go, put a fake name down, wear a mask the entire time, and just do this. You know?
And I have an example of this later in my show notes. But there's already someone who built a $5,000 Category 1 exhibition CDH deck. It's a Sisay that has stuff with like 3 Fairy, Esper Sentinel, Orcish Bowmasters, Ragavan, Deflecting Swat, Deadly Rollick, few free counter spells, all the OG dual lands, like, and it still counts as a level 1 exhibition deck.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why they'll never, and that's why it's like I like creating 5 formats. You can create this role play casual format that it doesn't matter that it's not balanced. Like if you like, all it really is you can just go sit down at a 1 table at a big con and just be a dick, and everyone can just hate you as a person. It's very funny in my opinion, but also like no one's paying money for it, so they don't have to care. You know, Wizards wants money, but so like nobody cares if those tournaments aren't good because they're not tournaments. You know, no one's gonna make an exhibition tournament.
Yeah, and Gavin in the announcement, Gavin did have like the caveat of like, you know, hey, here are a couple things to expect with the system. One of which is this system
people are still
can't stop bad actors. Like if someone wants to lie to you and mismatch and play the $5,000 to say deck because it's technically a bracket one, like that's on them, right? Like is a big part of Commander is it's a social game, and like you need to be conscious of the social setting. So I think like at like some level, understanding that these brackets have like other kind of just like etiquette rules to them as well, right? Like not bringing the Sisei deck to the bracket one, just in general, rule of thumb is probably how people should approach it if you're a reasonable person. But to your point, it is kind of like a fun deck building thing, or like a challenge to build something as high power as physically possible in a bracket one or something like that. Like so there's those little goofy
like,
little niche things, you know.
I get why, and people will do that. And like, you know, I said earlier, no one's going to make a, you know, exhibition tournament. Someone will, like,
Right.
and it will be interesting at first because of, you know, what we've already talked about. But really, you know, it's so nice to have that safety.
Yeah, exactly.
To have that form, do that. I think it's very interesting in that regard.
Right, like
I really like it. That's why, again, why I just ultimately this is a very positive and good thing for the format.
Yeah, I think I totally agree with you there. Like it's, you know, before we move on to bracket 2, I think the system itself, while there are negatives or there are like issues, this is the beta test, right? Like I think people need to go into this with not low expectations. Like obviously hold Wizards accountable if they're trying to organize Commander. Like absolutely, we need to have expectations. But this being like a step in the right direction, I guess is the point I'm trying to get to. Is this is a step towards trying to organize this game that, like you were saying, used to be my you know, my deck is a 7. Like what does that mean? Trying to like organize.
Well, everyone's deck is a 7.
Yeah,
that was the problem with one.
Exactly.
It's doesn't matter. Like who's gonna like what's the difference between a 2 and a 3? Like these individual limits are, you know, I mean a 2 and a 3 in like on a 0 to 10 scale. You know, like it's nothing, meaningless. You know.
Yeah. So yeah, I think ultimately this is like a better rule 0 system, right? It's just hey, I've got a bracket 1. We'll figure that out when we get there. Like I think for me, like before this bracket system even existed, over you know the last few years, my philosophy towards Commander has changed and evolved. Ultimately, it's for me personally, it's 3 brackets. It's casual, high power, and CDH. And then I think so now maybe I'll have a bit more definition in 1 and 2 being low power, and then figuring out 3 and 4 being this kind of like mid to high power Commander, and then CDH or bracket 5 being this like, you know, other category.
That's an interesting grouping. The way I see it is 4 and 5 are I see 5 in its own group. I see 4 in its own group.
Yep.
And I see 3 and 2 in a group, and then 1 through 3 a group.
Yep.
Like all these like concepts. Because in my opinion, I think there's nothing worse than 4 Commander. Actually, we should talk about that later. Cut that. Because we'll just get to that.
So real quick, I think I agree with you that 1 to 3 is to correct what I previously said. I think 1 to 3 is in my mind maybe the kind of lower level, the pre-con level. 4 being.
Well, didn't they say something was specifically a pre 2 or 3?
Yes, so 2. So
I think 2. Yeah, 2.
Yeah, before we continue our thoughts, let's just quick run through the brackets so we have a baseline understanding moving forward when talking about this. So
I'm looking at it right now.
We just went through bracket 1, which is exhibition, like you were saying, just like the super casual chair tribal deck or whatever you want to call it. You play your goofy decks that aren't optimized to win the game.
I'm reenacting. I'm playing Macbeth.
Yeah, exactly. You know? Bracket 2 is core, and this is where it's the average current pre-constructed deck is considered core level. And so they have potential for big splashy turns, strong engines, and are built in a way that work towards winning the game, but are unlikely to just end out of nowhere. So you're going to get a pre-con game. They will go 9+ turns typically. There will be big, fun, splashy plays, but it is a lower power level ultimately. Bracket 3 is upgraded, so consider this being like you take your pre-con, You add a few cards to make it a bit more focused, a bit faster. These decks are basically just souped up and ready to play beyond the strength of an average pre-constructed deck. You're trying to find your selected best in slot versions of every single card. So, for example, you're playing 2-drop mana rocks, you're not playing 3-drop mana rocks, these types of things to try to speed up your game plan to potentially win turn 5, turn 6. The big thing with the big change from 2 to 3 is now you're able to use 3 cards from the Game Changers list. However, you don't have to. It's just up to 3. So you can have a bracket 3 deck if you think it's upgraded and better than a precon. You don't have to play a Thassa's Oracle. You don't have to play Enlightened Tutor. You don't have to play these like game changer cards necessarily for your deck to be considered a 3. Bracket 4 is optimized. So this is where things get a little crazy, right? Like 1, 2, and 3.
This is where people are putting the just generically powerful cards.
Mm-hmm.
People are just putting the most generically powerful cards in a shell that is not focused on a metagame and is just like their thing. Like I know people who are just like, yeah, I own Jewel Lotus, I own every good, like everyone just understands to be Broken Rock. I play blue, like yeah, I play Ristic Study and I play those. Right. It might be like a Zur the Enchanter deck, or like, who's the giant
Dargo?
What's the other one? No, maybe Dargo. There's the one where it's like it's a Shroud Beater that you just play early. It's a Voltron, like just a Voltron deck.
Yep.
That's just highly souped, and it's just like someone has to deal with me or the game ends right away.
Right.
That kind of thing. This is like the just the mindless kind of. I'm just putting good cards in decks, in my honest to God opinion, because the difference between this and CDH is intention, and we'll talk about that.
Well, and I also think it's like, for me, 4 is an interesting spot because you can play, for example, one of my favorite decks that I have is Preston the Vanisher. It is a mono white flicker deck, right? So maybe this deck it started as like a 1 in concept where it's like, hey, I'm building mono white, I want to do flicker, and I want to do the Preston thing, which is make a bunch of like tokens of all my creatures and like have a bunch of fun ETBs, whatever. That eventually evolved into, well, hey, what if I took this deck, which Preston at a CDH table more than likely will never win, right? You're playing mono white flicker. This is a deck that, like, more often than not cannot compete with CDH level decks, right? This is a deck that cannot. It's like got a 4-mana commander that I'm like fully leaning into, that really won't win games until probably, like, win games consistently until probably turns 5, 6 plus, right? That's just not going to fly in CDH. However, it's a deck that I really love and have had fun building. And if we can, that's the thing, is like, I don't play, I think maybe to your point is like, I intentionally don't play my tier 4 decks with our play group that often because they're so much above like the pay grade of like what should be casual commander. Right.
Yeah. That's why I kind of view insane, stupid, this insanely like unfocused, just kind of like laser beam into like high power stuff. Mm-hmm. Is that people can play like is it Preston, you said, the bunny?
Yeah, Preston the Vanisher, yeah.
Preston, you could play your Preston the Vanisher deck versus the Voltron deck versus like someone's like combo deck versus somebody's other like really these kind of combo decks. I don't think of like turn counts in this format because it doesn't like turn counts aren't real unless you're playing CDH. Like the problem with Optimize is that someone will present something that is kind of quick, like this will end the game immediately, like this will end the game, but in like 12 turns, but it will end the game if this doesn't get answered. Right. Not like in CDH where people are built around to do that, but that will happen. And it becomes a Kingmakers format where it's like, who's going to spend the time to like take care of this? And then that person like will probably stop somebody, but won't be able to win themselves. And then they can probably decide who wins after that.
I think that's an issue that extends into CDH too, right? To some extent, with like turns, it's faster, right?
Yeah. Well, it's the difference. So there's a difference between like if someone presents this threat, let's pass priority around and figure this out in CDH, then there is an optimized, because CDH is understanding that that's going to happen, and it's really the strategy of playing your seat and playing your priority and taking those risks.
I think those concepts, you can take those concepts of CDH and apply them at the power level 4, like with stuff like interaction, right? Like I'm playing silence, I'm playing.
But that's what I'm saying is like, that's what I'm saying though, is that's the shitty part, is that like in CDH, everyone is ready and equipped to deal with it, so it never becomes like a game losing one to force will someone's win condition. Versus in 4, you spend your ability to win to stop somebody from winning the game in those situations, and it creates these dead games like immediately, where like in CDH you're built for it. In 4, if it happens, it becomes a burden. It's not a prescribed task like CDH 5 is. You know what I mean by that? Like it's just this. It becomes this this chore to have to deal with it, and then you just can't win. Yeah, and that's where it's problematic. That's where it's really problematic for me.
Yeah,
is that like when people play with that high level, it's going to be that way.
I understand that perspective. I just think it's really the thing I like about power level 4 is it allows decks like Preston the Vanisher or decks like I've got in Evelyn the Covetous is. I'm sure
you don't think you could build. You don't think you could build those at 2 or 3?
No. There are like the vast majority of my commander decks are built at 2 and 3 because I know that that's the sweet spot for playing casual commander, right? I only have like a couple quote unquote 4s because I know I'm not going to actively play them a ton, right? They're just like kind of fun things to.
Why make the 4?
Because it's interesting. Because like I guess for me, for Preston, for Evelyn,
do you have Preston in Moxfield right now?
I do. You want me to send you that list?
Check. Well, sure. We can check right now what makes Preston like literally.
Oh, I know exactly. Yeah. No, I 100%. I'm running stuff
it's
like
a 4.
It's a 4 because I'm running stuff like Chrome Mox. I'm running stuff like the One Ring. I'm running stuff like Enlightened Tutor. Like I'm running Ancient Tomb. Like my goal with Preston was to build the like very best possible version of Preston the Vanisher, right? And that's going to be a power level 4 that caps at power level 4 because it's not viable for CDH. I guess is my point. Is like power 4 is interesting to me because it allows commanders that I like and have I have an idea for that, like I was saying, maybe resonates more with like a 1 to 2 bracket, like that unique idea, and then I just go all in with it, right? So like Preston is power level 4 because it's got stuff like Chrome Mox, One Ring, like these Trouble in Pairs, Smothering Tithe, these cards that should not be. I shouldn't have that quantity at like I could pare it down to a 3 very easily for sure, but I love having Preston just maxed, just like I built him as best I possibly could. You know what I mean?
So I do. So what I'm trying to impart is that if you want to play Preston, like let's say Preston is a flavor, or it's a kind of cake, you can enjoy it at a 2 or a 3 or a 5, like a lesser or this kind of flavor of thing. What I'm suggesting is that why like CDH like I'm talking about that it becoming a choice versus a responsibility and like a thing to do, is that when you play the most powerful version of a not good. I'm not saying Preston isn't good, but it's not CDH.
Yeah, it's not viable for CDH.
Yeah. When you power spike these not competitive things, they become really good at some things, but really they're not like optimized to beat everything. And so they kind of are not degenerate so much as that they have these holes in them, or there's this linearity to them. Because what makes the difference between a CDH deck and a 4 deck is that those decks are like either it's so insanely fast that the flavor itself is busted and powerful, or the options are so plentiful that you get to do it so many different ways and it doesn't come at it like a cost. Like, like good example, like if I had, because I play the Master Transcendent.
Right.
That card inherently can never be a CDH commander, or its strategy be a CDH commander. So I can't play in commander. If I were to build it to an optimized 4, which you could argue I do, I haven't checked to see if it is or isn't. what I'm doing there is not playing tutors because I know it. I just end up having my flavor of commander with a bunch of different sticks that are just really good, like Ristic Study or the One Ring. Like, remember when I played Goblins and I had the One Ring and Shieldred in the deck? It's just like, oh, my Goblin strategy is good. But it's like, I'll just play Shieldred and just Shieldred just wins games on its own. It's like, I'm no longer playing this, it becomes this, like, I could enjoy the Master or, like, this instead of just by relying on these, like, weird sticks. I could just get the same amount of pleasure by doing it in a 2 and 3. And while it is like nice to be like, this is the best version of this, that gets really old for me quick because it's like, oh, the best version of the Master Transcendent is not competitive, CDH. It's not competitive. And all it is it's kind of like this, this all-in like cheese strategy to do something, but it can be broken up because I'm not competitive. I'm not designed to do it. So then those games I'm trying to describe is always like, I'm going to present my very linear win, and if anyone deals with it, I lose. But if you deal with it, you're probably going to lose because I'm not geared like CDH. That's where it gets stupid to me. So that's why I'm suggesting people never should play at 4 because, like, you can either play the CDH or just get the best out of Preston. But, like, do you need Ancient Tomb? Do you need the One Ring to do what Preston wants to do? Does it even synergize with it? Like, maybe not. It's like that's where I think 4 has been like, this is what the best thing about this commander brackets is I think we're going to see a lot less 4s in the world.
Oh, 100%.
We're going to see a lot less of that. And people will get out of what I consider to be like the least healthy commander format is a 4.
Yeah.
I think that's the exciting part.
No, I 100% agree with that. Like I was saying, I only have, I think, 2 or 3 4s. I think the sweet spot, honestly, for me for deck building right now is 2, and just gameplay in general is 3. For casual commander, go ahead.
Can we talk about like the individual rules and concepts? So like I want to talk no 2-card infinite combos as a concept.
Sure.
Talk about no mass land denial as a concept. So we already talked about few tutors, and I've already shared my opinion that I feel like tutors in general are bad for commander, and I think there could be a 0.5 format to support that. Or maybe just the value of it. Like a 4 with no tutors is very different. A 3 with no tutors. Like it's a pretty big deal. And few is also tough. No game changers, or let's do no 2-card infinites. No 2-card infinites is so interesting because a lot of 2-card infinites that like win the game on the spot are technically like 3-card infinites. Right. You could certainly go channel Fireball. I mean, I actually don't know if those cards are legal.
Channel's banned, but I know what you mean. I know what you mean.
You can do these 2-card combos that win the game on the spot, but like the infiniteness, it might not actually be infinite, but just a fit amount. Like what stops me from doing a Scape Shift combo? That's not 2 cards, but it is an infinite combo with essentially 1 card. And so, like, that doesn't stop a lot of those things, which is weird. And, like, while that doesn't matter in exhibition, it does matter for, like, core. Or, like, the difference between a 3 and a 2, it's like, oh, well, like, I'm playing this crazy Scape Shift deck in 2, but it's like, everyone else doesn't get card infinite combos, but you do. Like, that's... And some infinite combos aren't even very good. Like, oh, I gave myself an infinite amount of food tokens.
Yeah, infinite life.
Kind of dog shit. Well, infinite life is, exactly. Infinite life is, unless you have like the, and now I'll, Urza's Saga and make constructs with my infinite food tokens, then it becomes a problem, But that's, that's a 2-card combo.
Lily's got a lot to say about 2-card combo.
Yeah, I know. She's her back legs are not working very well, so you have to pick her up.
Aww.
Or she'll just cry. She can't jump on my lap anymore.
Poor Lily. Named after Liliana, correct?
Yes.
And then you have Akarn is your other kitty, right?
Yeah, he was meant to be the great creator these days. Mostly not never wearing pants, So.
I love it. But yeah, no, it is interesting that I think 3 late game 2-card infinite combos is so weird when paired with 3 game changers. Because your 3 game changers could just be tutors, right? It's a 3rd card to your 2-card combo, but it's also just like effectively
it's B-, lowercase b.
Yeah, which is why you've definitely expressed that you're anti-tutor for commander, which I've kind of moved more towards just in general.
Yeah.
Like I've been pulling
just because you want
tutors
interesting. Like, what's the point of playing Commander if it's
yeah,
not
just
100 cards?
it's
You know,
exactly it's literally just killing a slot where you could put another cool card. You know,
Sure. That's a great way to look at it too. Honest to God, like, that's a great that's a good point.
That's the whole fun. The whole fun of playing 100-card singleton is you get to play, 100
single cards,
funky, weird little cards that you get a game plan for, and playing tutors is just like cutting a card slot essentially. So, yeah, I don't know. I've definitely moved a bit beyond tutors, and that's why I think calling for having Worldly Tutor, having Eladamri's Call, having even stuff like Personal Tutor, just have like more tutors in the Game Changers category, I think is just a net positive no matter what. But yeah, I do see what you're saying about how there's so many bad tutors like Diabolic or not. Is it Diabolic Tutor? The 4-mana?
Well, I mean, Diabolic works too.
4-mana
there's an infinite amount of them.
Yeah. So
like, Grim Tutor is just as insane if it's playing, Rog. Like, it doesn't matter that you have to sacrifice a creature. Now it's Demonic Tutor, and that's not on the Game Changers list, right? Like, who cares?
Yeah. Or like
there's lots of ways to ruin the concept of, tutoring for, your 98th copy of B.
Right. Which is why also, to your point earlier, like bracket 4 can also feel like, hey, I've got a commander, and then I'm just going to play like all of the good stuff. I'm going to play all the free, but it's like CDH without the intention of being CDH. So yeah, I don't know. I see
these problematic cards. I used to back in the day, and like I'd play Corona the False God, 5-color commander deck, and I would just put cards in there. I would just put really good cards like Rhystic Study and
that reminds me. Bullshit. I think there was one commander night we had, and you just had your Vintage Cube, and you took Corona, and then you just put Vintage Cube .deck as your commander deck, and it was awful.
It was great. This is exactly what 4 is supposed to be. It's just my look at my Corona, but it's like I'm just gonna study into the One Ring.
Right. Rhystic Study, One Ring. Yeah. All the broken, busted Vintage Cube stuff that should stay in Vintage Cube.
I mean, it's all legal in Commander. That's the problem. You could do that. I didn't play any cards that you couldn't play.
Yeah.
Though there was that one time I accidentally played what's that 3-drop?
Oh, I forget. Yeah, you had a couple cards where as you played them, I was like, I think that's probably on the ban list, but how'd that get in there? Or like
Leovold.
Oh yeah, Leovold. Yeah. Or like Jacob, I think had Moxen in his I forget it's the Jeskai Bird commander. He's like, oh, I got 3 Moxen in here, it's whatever.
Like Mox Ruby, Mox
yeah, which are
which
are banned, understandably so. But yeah, do you want to run through some of the do you want to run through the Game Changer list and kind of discuss some of the picks? And
for sure, can we talk about just the concepts, and then we can go over
the right. We talked about combos, so we should talk about extra turns and mass land denial.
Land denial. Yeah. I distinctly remember the last time we played Commander, you were playing with your in Spirit 1 exhibition deck, and you played a turn 2 Blood Moon after I ironically force-willed somebody else's card because they randomly chose to slow me down.
I was going to bring this up.
And then Blood Moon comes down against my non-basic land deck. I go, okay, and I just sit back and I'm done playing in this level 1 game.
My gosh. I know. I was going to bring up Joven, and I have since removed. I put a Mass Hysteria because it's much more in the flavor of the deck than the Blood Moon. Because Blood Moon alone makes my deck go from a 1 to a 4. Just the presence of Blood Moon.
Yeah. Yep. Pretty fucked up.
Yeah, I know. And I realized I put it in there because, so Joven it's a mono red, all old border, all just like, red, playing mono red alone is like, you're playing at a deficit in Commander, and then electing to do only old border is another downside. So it was like, I'm just trying to build a goofy deck with Joven, who's just like a bad commander.
Yeah,
right?
you're role playing. You know, you're getting your role playing.
Yeah, and it's a fun deck to play, but it does run stuff like Yokel Hops, Obliterate. So I'm gonna,
which, you know, that's a flavor thing. Like just the idea of no mass land denial is broad yet very clear.
Yeah.
Like we all know, if I play Winter Order, that is a land denial. It's not land destruction, but it's not really changing the way people are gonna have to tap for shit.
Right.
I totally get that. I think it's very interesting because it's the same concept of that, like what could have been for tutors is the same thing with land denial, where it's like, yeah, we all know, like, you know, like there's a trillion ways to destroy all lands. You know, there's lots of ways to do that. And that just like is, you know, a big part of a lot of like strategies. Like, what if I had a braid stack where like the concept is sack? And I understand a lot of people, new people, don't really understand or appreciate what those kinds of like sinkhole decks are for and about.
Right.
And I get it; it's unfun. But if you made it like a
and it's why braids is banned.
Yeah, like it just, you know. So it's very much a racing industry, in my opinion. This no mass land denial. I totally get it. I think it's. I don't think anyone wants to
especially
like,
after
all
that
my
blood
lands
moon.
are special lands. Blood moon. my exhibition. My concept is that I'm playing with all like special foil fetch lands and like shock lands. Like it's just more of like a appreciate my lands like showcase gallery deck, and it's just like, yeah, blood moon, give fucks. You know, it's just like, all right, cool. You know,
fun game,
right.
real fun game.
Yeah. And you look at blood room resolves, and you look at your hand, and it's 3 fetch lands that are now mountains. It's just like, oh, okay.
Yeah, but it's just funny that Joven, and like obviously.
Sure. Yeah.
This is a good example of potentially the system helping deck build. Like obviously, I threw Blood Moon in because I think I actually bought this Blood Moon from you. It's
oh really?
Yeah. Well, we traded for it, but it's from, you know, it's the Chronicles white border Blood Moon. It's just
I'm missing one of those for my playset. I just realized.
Yeah, when we did a trade, I nabbed one.
That explains where it's gone. I remember.
And yeah, I threw it in because it's a pretty card, and it's an old border red card, and like
it's a cool card. I like Blood Moon.
Yeah, I love Blood Moon. Like in my
but I understand why people don't.
Yeah, like there's a place in time, right? Like in my Crux dual commander deck, like hell yeah, run a Blood Moon. Like there's a place in time for some of these cards. You know what I mean? But commander, it's not always the case. What do you think about the no chaining extra turns, or just no extra turns for, I think, bracket 1 and bracket 2, chaining extra turns?
You know, I think there's something really funny about extra turns. A lot of the times, you know, I play a lot of Vintage.
Yeah.
And in Vintage, sometimes your time walk is just explore. Like you're just going turn 2. Like on turn 1, land, Moxen, you know, time walk. It's like, okay, pass turn, draw, down. You know, sometimes you have to do that. Like if you're playing in Sphere Shops and you're just trying to find that extra forceful or extra blue card for something, you know, you can do it and just get ahead. Like you can do that, and that's a thing. That is not a thing, or not. It's not how it works in Commander. I feel like extra turns at a certain state in the game become really shitty. But also, like, there are strategies about like taking, like, that's my thing, is I want to take extra turns, which in an exposition thing is like, you know, kind of shitty that that's there. It's, again, I know Rule 0 applies, but it's like very bizarre to have these like, you know, like just concept eliminations, like no mass land denial. Like you can still play Wasteland, but like, you know, no mass land denial, no extra turns, none at all. What about few extra turns? Like I think it's just an interesting concept, and it only exists in 1, and I understand why. But it's a good place to have it. I'm glad, because again, like I'm just so not sure on the concept of no extra turns at all, that I'm glad it's only designated to 1.
Right.
I think that works just right.
Yeah, and then I think the bracket 3 having like just the no chaining extra turns, just like you're allowed to have extra turns, just don't do like 4 extra turns in a row type thing, or infinite extra turns type thing. I think yes, it's totally fair, because it is fun if you can pull off a big time stretch or something. You know, like obviously time walk not being legal in Commander, but I don't know, it can be fun, a big splashy play that doesn't completely warp the game.
yeah, I think it's also very flavorful. It's a
Mhm.
big part of Magic is extra turns. It's a big sparkly thing.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I think people like it. I think people will be sad without it. Late game 2-card infinite combos.
Right. That's an interesting caveat too.
What is late game in Commander? Because I don't count turns. Don't matter outside of CDH.
Yeah, it is a little gray area.
Because it is. And it, you know, so I remember I accidentally discovered an infinite in the last time we played.
Right.
I knew I was playing Food Chain with Mistallow, which gives you infinite mana to spend on creatures.
Yeah.
You know, like that's not actually that good of an infinite combo, but it is at the same time, absolutely. If I said you had infinite mana for infinite creatures, like you could only do so much with that. But if I also told you and you have a sack outlet, that changes things enormously.
Or one of those creatures is Walking Ballista. Or
sure, well, but that's an ABC card. You know what I mean? But like,
yeah.
what? Yeah, absolutely. No, you're totally right. With Walking, that is devastating. But like in Commander, that concept of infinite creature mana and sack outlet means no matter what your commander is, you get infinite commander cast. That's the real problem with that infinite combo. And so this is kind of more on the concept of no infinite combos at all. It's like it's an interesting concept. There's like, you know, infinite food is, you know, pretty shitty. Infinite creature mana might not be that good. It might mean you just dump your hand and that's it. But if like you also have a way to sacrifice your commander and just cast it infinite amount of times, which, you know, giving everyone an infinite amount of rad counters is very funny in my opinion. But if it's like, you know, if your commander is like, when it create a treasure token, like, you know, that's really fun. Or not create a clue token, but that infinite mana you have is only for creature spells. Like, I don't know, like that's not that good. Like, or it doesn't win you the game. Like, I think it's cool. Like, you know, it's very interesting. So these late game 2-card infinite combos, what are they? What are late game infinite combos?
So there's some like pretty like I guess they might be thinking of stuff like Exquisite Blood and Sanguine Bond, or just 2 cards where when they hit the battlefields and they're like kind of high mana cost or whatever, just 2 cards that you can assemble later in the game. And maybe just the idea of late game is too vague or ambiguous or what have you. Because you can assemble that combo. As long as you get that combo and you have the mana for that combo, it can happen whenever. So those cards are in your deck.
Turn 1, Swamp Soul Ring. Turn 2, Swamp. I have the mana for... I could go turn infinite combo, you know, with the Sanguine Blood stuff.
Yeah,
like, that is a... You know,
so do you just hold on to those cards until the late game, or
sure? You know? Or like, you know, what is late game? Like, are we talking about individual cards? Are we talking about a turn count? Are we going to have to figure out an exact turn count? Because that sucks. Because again, turns shouldn't matter in casual Commander. You're just playing at an undesignated pace because, you know, you're playing with 4 people. So it kind of reminds me of like, you know, we were just talking about introduce Luke to Sly versus Stasis.
Yeah,
is that like, let's not count turns. Like that's gonna be a big count. Like it doesn't matter. It's a very different kind of tempo. And Commander's kind of the same way. It totally depends. Like there's never gonna be like a uniform turns in the 3 tier. Because you could be playing with 3. Yeah, I'm playing Uro. Like, yeah, I'm playing, you know, this big wall deck, you know, just like turtle decks that just take forever to win.
Yeah.
You know, so late game for them is gonna be like turn 40. But like late game for like we're all playing Skullbriar, that's not going to be a very late game. Like what is late game deck?
Right.
You know, late game is always defined on the matchup, and that's why like in Commander there is no late game. You know, it's always like ambiguous.
And because of that, you know, ambiguity and variance from, you know, play group to play group or just game to game, yeah, it's hard because you're trying to define something very specifically with what cards you can have in your deck by 2 card infinite combos literally means you can or cannot have these 2 cards in your deck, right? And then so the late game being ambiguous or having so much variance adds like it makes that term for bracket 3 very like not concrete at all. It's up to interpretation, which I think is probably my biggest issue with the bracket system as a whole is right now, at least because it's new, it hasn't been tested. There's a lot of gray area for things like that. And just with this new game changers list, yeah, I don't know. It's gonna be interesting to see how it evolves over time, and if we want to talk about, I think we should talk about maybe some of the game changers cards and just overall. We can jump into that next, but I just wanted to quick say like, yeah, there's a slight level of ambiguity here that we're just gonna have to work through because this is still in beta testing, I think.
Sure, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that because again, this whole concept is so insulated against, like, oh, you have to do it because about a trillion times in Gavin's videos, doesn't matter. Rule 0, just the mere existence of Rule 0 means I can Rule 0 this whole bracket. Like, I don't care. Like,
True.
I continue to do what I want. I'm gonna go sit at a table and go, you want to play Commander? Sit down with CDH and just spike on people for fun. I'm never gonna do that, but like people can.
Right.
This is no hard set thing. It's fake format for a fake format. Like they get to do this. I think it's only good. I'm excited.
Agreed.
But let's talk about these game changers.
Yeah. So you want to do it by color and just, I guess, point out a couple of the notable ones, or do you just want to point out to
I was gonna say, I don't think there's a lot of individual ones. There's not a lot anything to say about. There are some that I do. Like I want to talk about Ristic Study, but I don't give a shit about talking about Imperial Seal or Yuriko. Like I don't want to talk about that. I have nothing.
Right. There's some cards where it's just like, obviously Imp Seal, Demonic Tutor. A lot of these tutors are just, they're tutors. They're the strongest possible tutors. Is a reason why there's a limit on them. Like there's not a whole lot to say there for sure.
Sure. Absolutely.
One that
so game changers.
Yeah, game changers. I'll let you kick it off. You pick a card and we'll just jump right into it.
Sure. Do you want to talk about the concept of game changer?
Yeah, so we alluded to it a bit earlier, but there's currently a list of 40 cards that are known as game changers, and you can only choose for bracket 3. You can only play up to 3 game changers from this list in your deck, and then for bracket 4, which is optimized, and bracket 5, which is CDH, you can play any number of these cards. I think it's
a pseudo ban list.
It's like like a mini ban list. It's like it's not quite a point system for bracket 3, right? Like you can just pick and choose any of these, even though the power level between these cards is astronomical in some cases, right? So I don't know, the idea of a points list, that's a whole other discussion that we don't even need to have necessarily, but it's like
so when we talk about game changers, just the concept of it, there's already kind of something like this. There's the point system that is in what format again, Leland?
There's Vintage and Canadian Highlander, which is, I think,
there's the Vintage. Do you mean like $30 Vintage?
No, I guess restricted is different then. So points list is Canadian Highlander, which is, sorry, I mixed those two up because it's you're playing the Vintage card pool in Canadian Highlander. In Vintage, you're restricted to like 1 copy per card on the restricted list, correct?
Yes, but that's not a point system.
That's not a point system, so that's just restricted, which is, I guess, maybe more akin to what this game changers list thing is. But so that aside,
so game changers, go ahead.
I was just going to say, Canadian Highlander has this point system where some of the more high-powered cards like Black Lotus, the Moxen, basically Power 9, they're extremely high-pointed. And then it goes kind of down the list with some of these other cards like Urza Saga, other stuff on this list like the One Ring, Underworld Breach. All these kind of game changers are pointed where you can only have an X amount of points in your deck in Canadian Highlander. So it could be kind of interesting, and this is just an aside, that we could have, instead of this like 3-card limit to bracket 3, we could just for each bracket have like, you can have 1, 2, 5 points in bracket 3, 5 to 10 in bracket 4, or however you want to do it, to maybe make bracket 4 a bit more playable. I know, like, kind of pointing back to the issues you have with bracket 4, maybe a points list could make bracket 4 maybe feel a bit more playable or feasible because it's limiting the amount of good stuff deck exists with some of those commanders.
I think that's what 3 is for, right?
Right. So point system aside, what bracket 3 is doing right now, we have, I guess, which is, it's closer to a restriction, right? A restricted list where you can only have 3 from the total of 40 cards in a bracket 3 deck.
The problem with these point systems and game changers as a concept is that it's going to be another list to monitor. And where it's really bad is things like $30 vintage, where the market changes every day. My deck is exactly $29.70, but I play a Soul Ring, and Soul Ring fluctuates on average. Like, I could be a legal deck today and a legal deck, not legal deck tomorrow.
Right.
It could be bad. Like, that sucks. The point system in Canadian Highlander is run by an individual person, and that also takes like an insane knowledge. You have to make a spreadsheet for your deck. Not very intuitive for deck building or deck viewing or deck checking, where that's problematic. Game Changers is just a flat list, and restricting them by number based on different formats is probably the best way to do this. But it does take a lot, and it does mean that without things like Moxfield or some other deck tracking websites that could have these values stored on these cards to tell you if your deck is legal, it wouldn't be possible without those things. Right. So overall, I think Game Changers in 2025, the tools we have, is probably the best way to do these individual values, just as a concept. So I'm very pro Game Changers. I don't know about you.
No, I agree. I think, I was going on about the possibility of a point system, and I think that would work just as well. I do think that Canadian Highlander, because it's like a full committee, and they do have like, much like banned and restricted announcements being quarterly or however Wizards does it currently. Like, if you're tapped in and like you're like, I think how the Canadian Highlander committee runs their format is top tier, and like it makes a lot of sense in my mind how it works, and like Moxfield also tracks all the points and all these things. To your point, I think the fact that we have Moxfield and Architect and these systems that can flag these cards makes it extremely easy to track how many game changers you have, if you want to cut a couple to go from a 4 to a 3, or if you're looking to go from a 2 to a 3 power wise, you can pick and choose just these 3 cards, and it's a very easy kind of transition between those brackets. So I think it's a really solid system, and I'm eager to see how it kind of pans out in this beta test.
Yeah, I really like it the way it is. I understand like how it works. Like, the committee is solid. It does mean like, I think of like individuals. Like, do you think Luke and Johnny would be able to keep up with the point system easier or harder? Or would it be easier or harder than Game Changers?
Right.
Like, I think that's why I like how it is there. Is like, it makes it so that, Timmy twice a month who plays can always just pick up his deck and just know he's fine.
That's true. And it doesn't become like this math problem of, hey, I can only have X amount of points.
Field of study.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I don't need a dedicated Twitter account to know what changes.
Exactly. And for the fact that this is historically an extremely casual format, like obviously this system at its surface is seemingly complex. Like, it is. The one thing I like about it being fairly bare bones right now is that it isn't, to your point, it isn't like overly complicated for, Timmies or for new players or players who are new to Commander. They can jump in, and I think the system will in fact help them determine kind of where their starting point is. Like, maybe they do like playing with super powerful cards, and like, but they're, kind of unfamiliar with 100 card singleton. Well, maybe category 3 is what you're looking for, because you get to play your Demonic Tutor, you get to play your Smothering Tithe, you get to play your Rhystic Study, though no one should be playing Rhystic Study in my opinion.
No one should be playing any of those cards.
But you can, but if
all stink.
Yeah, they all stink, but you can still do that if you're, I don't know. My point being, like, players from all experience levels can approach this bracket system with these game changers and like have a very easy introduction to the format, and also be like inherently paired with players of their skill level and deck power level. Yeah.
Well, yeah, skill level maybe. I think that's insane, but it's nice to have a place where someone who has been playing for 30 years who wants to play their chair tribal deck,
right?
And still play chair tribal versus Timmy two times a month who has his just really shitty bulk. Like, I made it out of the commons of my LGS. That's a one,
Right.
Go play with them. Skill level be damned. You get to do these things.
100%.
So individuals on Game Changers, I've got a couple funny. I like some picks out of them.
Okay.
I think Tabernacle is hilarious. I mean, absolutely, I understand why. I distinctly remember playing my friend's Tabernacle deck, and Luke just being so fucking over it. Just every turn getting taxed for his creature tribal deck. Just like, yep, that's Tabby. And I get to cycle it out. Totally understand. So shit sucks. I mean, I hate Mana Acceleration. I'm glad to see like Mana Vault on this list.
Yep.
I don't want to talk about why Soul Ring is on it. We all know why Soul Ring is on the Game Changers list.
Yep.
Yeah, it's
the iconic card of the format.
Yeah. I think Opposition Agent is a good idea for like fun value, regardless of skill.
Yep.
We've already talked about like Demonic Tutor. Is there any like cards individually that you're excited, like you've got opinions on?
Yeah,
that think are funny.
I think to along the lines of Opposition Agent, Drannith Magistrate being on the list. I think maybe seeing a few more Staxy style pieces. Additions. We can talk about additions next, but yeah, I'm glad to see Drannith Magistrate here. I'm glad to see Smothering Tithe and Trouble in Pairs. These cards that where there's like a trigger on the stack, and then you get like inherent advantage that I don't know. It just warps games in like much like Ristic Study.
There's a salt factor for Ristic Study where like I get mad at someone else on the table for paying for Ristic Study, not paying. It's like you get mad at somebody else for doing it. Like these are just like shitty cards in general that like outside of CDH, where there's just like, but that's the game, like you just get mad at your friends for like letting somebody win by not paying for Ristic Study and shit.
Right.
Like that's rough.
It's interesting to see. Obviously, Kinnan, Iriko, and Winota are on here because they're broken things to have in the command zone and their CDH deck. CDH tier commanders. It's just interesting to see a commander be considered a game changer. You know what I mean? So,
yeah, commanders have game changers are pretty faulty. I distinctly have a memory 4 years ago showing up with my Urza Lord High Artificer because little did people know at time me, one of my friends here locally in Magic, is that we were playing a 5-color commander. We were playing a 5-person commander game at this random LGS. Like that's not even around anymore. It was real sketchy. I sat down with my Urza High Lord Artificer. Little did they know that Urza was the only blue card in the entire deck. It was a completely colorless roleplay deck. Urza had no synergy. It was just a thing to do. But I did have things like Mana Vault, and so all I would do is like ramp into one really big thing and then do nothing. So, the deck was degenerate and not like I get it. But it wasn't Urza High Lord Artificer. Right. It was not an actual Urza deck. So when I sat down, and I had just learned that Commander no longer has sideboards. It once did. Mm-hmm. I had a Karn, the Great Creator, in my deck, and the only thing I had in the sideboard was a Liquid Metal coating, because that's kind of like it combos with Karn itself and becomes like an interesting thing to tutor for. It manifests its own, like, instead of it being a token, an actual card. It was very interesting. It's like it's an essential part of the card, besides it being a one-sided null rod. In Commander, it's useless. There's no sideboard. So when I sat down and presented my Urza, Rule 0, guys, can I have my Commander card? And individually, every random, just casual Commander player was like, actually, I don't think that's a good idea because you're playing Urza, High Lord Artificer. So if we let you have any extra advantages, that would be bad. And I'm like, well, I'm actually like a no blue, like I'm not doing anything blue, I'm just doing this. And they're like, well, I don't think it's a good idea. It's like, okay, very cool. Like, I guess not, I won't have it. And
That's
then
funny.
my good friend Sharik, who I think you might have met before, who also is not a big fan of that interaction in that Commander, goes turn 1, Sarah Ascendant. He's like, well, he's the Urza deck, so I should attack him. And he attacks me 5 times in a row with the Sarah Ascendant, and everyone is now on my side. Everyone's like, hey man, that's kind of mean. You should attack someone else. And I look at Shark and I go, no, dude, I think it's the right call. And he just keeps attacking me and kills me.
Amazing.
It was pretty great. But it also kind of goes into like, like I'm gonna play my Urza like mean deck, like at my format. Rule 0 exists. But, and this is the thing we'll talk about it later because we're talking about game changers. But there's a certain kind of, we'll talk about it later. A certain attitude that comes with these game change or these brackets. But
sure,
yeah, that's my Urza High Lord Artificer story.
That's too funny. But yeah,
I'll still play him. My cat is Karn, and
right.
This is my favorite piece in lore. I would love to make an Urza commander deck, but people are gonna get mad.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Well, I think to that point, right? There's like people have, these are kind of notorious commanders. So I think keeping them out of tier 1 or bracket 1 and bracket 2 is probably for the best, right? Like it's hard to make Kinnan casual. You know what I mean? Like that's an inherently probably not, you can't make a level 2 bracket 2 Kinnan or Yuriko or so.
You're up to no good.
Yeah, exactly.
When you're doing that shit.
Exactly.
And I totally understand. It's kind of like the same thing with it's a lot of like I'm the villain or like I'm the the Punisher with like Dranith Magistrate and that shit. I think Sarah's Sanctum is hilarious on this list.
Yeah, that's so
not a good card.
It's so random. It's so niche too. I think they probably just obviously Guy's Cradle and they were like, oh, we'll also just throw Sarah's Sanctum on here. Yeah, it's kind of funny, but
I'm assuming what's it called? Tolarian Academy is
banned. Yep.
Also is banned, right? Yeah, it's just straight up banned. Hilarious that we put the other ones just on. Whatever. Put them on a list.
That's funny. Do you think, is there anything missing from this list?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Because this is based on vibes. Like a lot of it is like not because they're not too strong because clearly, and I understand that Gavin said this is kind of like already acting as the watch list, but like they're never going to ban Cyclonic Rift. Underworld Breach, maybe. Like I could see that. That makes sense as like a thing, but like, why, like, where's Humility? Like, that card is miserable to play against, banned. Especially if you're... Oh, it's banned?
Yeah.
Humility?
Yeah, Humility's banned.
Are you sure?
Yep.
Oh, all right. Well, that explains that. What about, like, Nether Void? Like, these other kind of...
No, Nether Void is legal. Nether Void is legal.
Yeah, like, same deal. Like, that just... I'm thinking about these kind of like static effects. Like if we're gonna have Tabernacle, where's Nether Void? Same deal. Dog.
Wait, no, Humility is legal. Humility is legal in Commander. Throw it in.
Oh, okay. Well, that's not, well, that's my. But that's the thing is like there's an kinds of like things that people don't want to deal with. Like what about like Mindslaver or Emrakul like effects where you take someone else's turn? Like that is also ass.
Yeah.
Like I don't. Is it an infinite combo if I can your turns by recurring Mindslaver? No, because I'm passing turns. Like it doesn't, there's going to be a lot of things that are based on vibes, which is Game Changers is the vibes thing. Yeah. And like the vibes list. And I get it, but like it's also like this is kind of where it gets problematic with when you talk about numbers. It's why I would never want to play in a dedicated 4 bracket because it's just going to be as many of these Game Changers plus things that they don't know to mention.
Right.
And it's just like that's not very interesting. We're no longer we're playing constructed where it's like it's shitty constructed where it's like we all have the same cards in our decks and we're all just hoping to like spike good 7s and have people side with me like bad faith politics and shit like that.
Right. Which is why bracket 3 is kind of the sweet spot, right? Like you get to,
I think so.
Like you're building a deck as optimally as possible. You have a game plan. You're trying to win the game, but you can't throw every single busted card ever into your deck to make that happen.
Well, there's just a limit to these just overpowered cards that they can't ban, but are just a part of it.
I think that the issue that people are going to run into more so than I guess to wrap up this little game changer section, I think the 40 starting point is fine. There's stuff I'd like to see like, Esper Sentinel, Orcish Bowmasters, a few more tutors, these types of things maybe added to this list. But I think a 40 card starting point, this is a good way to test the waters. And I think it's probably
is Narset part of Veils? Is Narset in
Narset's legal.
the ban list?
Narset's legal.
Okay, that's
so yeah,
not
that's
on this list.
That's
though.
the thing. That's the other thing with Commander is like, as like obviously there's a ton of just historically busted cards, but as with every single year, Wizards is printing more and more messed up cards, more and more powerful cards. And I think Commander being this place where we can play cards from, across Magic's history is like, it's part of the fun of it. Mm-hmm. But going all out with the game changers and adding like 150 game changers cards and limiting that pool so severely could kill.
It'll come into the situation of Canadian Highlander. Mm-hmm. It's like no human being can tell you. Like I know every card that's like I can tell you what's banned and not banned in Legacy, but right. Like I don't think this casual format should have you learn an encyclopedic knowledge. Like Legacy is the largest ban list because it's every card, which means you have to ban a shit ton of things.
Yeah, right.
But like restrictions of Vintage is shorter. And like, but if you create, if you have the same concept where every card is legal, but there's also we're banning cards not just on power level, but like it feels bad when someone casts Teferi Protection when I'm about to win. Mm-hmm. Like that kind of shit. That's how it goes. Like you just got to deal with it. Hold that L. Someone has a split second card. I hate that. Put that on the game changer.
All split second, a little Croson grip action.
Yeah, just get them out
hit
of
with
here.
A little Veil of Summer.
Yeah. Well, the Veil of Summer isn't. That's not how Veil of Summer works.
Well, no, I know that's not split second, but I'm just talking about like a silence effect or like someone's about to pop off. I don't know. I think silence is maybe like on the edge.
Well, so the thing is, what I hate split second, it's non-interactive. Silence, you can respond to silence.
Yeah,
you can still do something. But if I go to Fairy's Protection on like something else, it's just like it's now indestructible. And I can't do anything about it. If they have one green open and their creature resolves, you can't get rid of it. You have to burn a card. Like there's no playing around it. It's just over. I don't like can't in Magic. I've been real articulate about that a lot of the time. Yeah. Like any of those kinds of less interactive things, which any split second card is. Veil of Summer, you can still at least respond to Veil of Summer. I'll tell you how many times I've gone Veil, someone counters it, and I go Veil again. Plus your storm. Like that's a thing that happens and sucks,
Right,
like
right.
You gotta deal with it. But
all right, so that's game changers. Let's see. I think we didn't hit on.
How about precons? Just a concept.
The concept of precons within this bracket system?
Having a unified. Yeah, I like that precons are targeted for 2. I think 2, and especially because precons are so playable these days in casual groups that I think everyone should be trying to build a 2 or a 3. Like
and it's
those
such
kinds of decks that's like what you want when you're talking about this like dining experience of Commander.
And it's such a touchstone of the format too, where they're so like a lot of people start with a precon too, so it's a good like spot to place of reference for new players. It's just like precon, I've got a couple of those. Kind of know what that what it's like playing a level 2. It will be interesting to see if this impacts, and this is a very like small issue at all, but just like for future precon construction, even like will WOTC feel kind of limited by this system in terms of like game changer reprints? Not that these game changers need reprints, and a lot of them definitely won't see reprints, but it is kind of interesting to see like Trouble in Pairs, for example, was printed last year. You know what I mean? Like in a precon. So it'll be interesting to see how having precons be set at 2 and having cards be printed in that are game changers. Like that's part of the appeal of some of these precons as well. Like just thinking like Polywog Prodigy, not that that's a game changer, but just like high power cards that appear only in the precons is like kind of an appeal. Like, this is a super powerful funky new card in a precon, right?
Yeah, but those don't go on the game changers when they're new cards, right?
Yeah. So they'll exactly. So just as long as, and I doubt that they're in charge, so they're not going to print a card and then immediately restrict it, right? So
sure, Nadu. Aren't we now in our collector packs putting Commander only cards in there?
Yep. Yeah, one of the slots. Yep.
They're getting out there. One of the things that at first was that like this is going to affect reprints. It's like not really, because it's like if they can't put them in like a certain amount of these cards in there, they could just shove them in. Like they just did Mox Diamond in the dinosaur set, right? Or not Mox Diamond.
Mox Opal?
Shit.
Or no.
The Jeweled Lotus.
Yeah, Jeweled Lotus was in Ixalan.
They just did a Jeweled Lotus in Ixalan. Like those don't have to be the collector stuff.
Yeah,
so,
it's like the special
if
guest
you're worried about
slot or
them
whatever.
not being able to, if you're worried about them not being able to print as many like Imperial Seals or like Trinispheres, they're just gonna be in that collector pack. And I don't want Trinisphere to be in precons. That's ass. And
my issue wasn't so much with reprints as much as like I don't want that to hinder the design team when building precons, which is unlikely, but also like we might not see cards.
I have a feeling it's already going. I have a feeling it's already going. Like they're already not putting these game changers. I'm pretty sure they already. Let's not put those in the precons. Like let's actually go through what of these have been in precon. No Thassa's Oracles, no Mystical Tutors, no Jin-Kataxes, none of the green cards. Like it's really, I'm pretty sure Trouble in Pairs, and then
some of the
maybe Bolas' Citadel,
the free commander spells.
Are those in the precons? I thought they were a part of a.
Well, I thought that they were originally printed, and they haven't been in precons in a long time.
I don't think they were in the precons. I think they were just where you bought booster packs.
Yeah,
Bruce Guardianship and shit.
I know, obviously, Commander Masters with the reprints. Yeah, Commander 2020. It was just in a precon. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, like Deflecting SWAT, Deadly Rollick, whatever the green one is. These are all in precons originally.
Commander Masters.
Commander 2020.
Yep. Okay.
So it is a small pool of cards, but I'm just thinking like stuff like Metamorphosis Fanatic, Polywog Prodigy, this new Renewed Solidarity, just really powerful cards that aren't maybe in this tier.
Hold on, is Metamorphosis Fanatic a game changer?
It's not a game changer, but I guess my point is like I don't want them to be like hesitant to print a Metamorphosis Fanatic or hesitant to print a Polywog Prodigy.
Well, that's the thing is I don't think those cards are like Metamorphosis Fanatic is just not. Right. Every black card on that list, there's not a chance Metamorphosis Fanatic is even close.
No, for sure. I guess just my point being that I don't want them to like shy away from stuff like at the power level of Metamorphosis Fanatic or Trouble in Pairs, or
I think it is going to happen. They're not going to reprint Jessica's Will in a precon again because they know that like dummies strong and should not just. It's going to be too good in any precon anyway.
Right.
So I do like the idea of the core. A level 2, no game changers for those precons. Like I don't want them to reprint those in precons because those are too good. But like Metamorphosis Fanatic is clearly not a game changer. So like I don't think that they're gonna have a hard time justifying those reprints. It's really just like Trouble in Pairs. Yeah, they will have a hard time justifying. It's a game changer. The power level is difference between them is so high.
For sure. All right. Well, I think to wrap up, are there any like I guess kind of final thoughts you have about the bracket system? Kind of a final vibe check.
Don't play 4. That sounds like a nightmare. Sounds like the worst time. It sounds like the worst thing. Commander bracket 4. Don't do it.
Fair enough. But yeah, overall, you're on board. It sounds like you're on board with the bracket system.
I think it's great. I think it's a great way to like be like, yeah, your deck is a full. Like that's I like a more interactive experience. Like I like 2. I like 3s. I think they're interesting. I think they get the concept pretty well. I think I think they're appeasing a little bit of the Zoomer crowd with a mass land denial or chaining extra turns. Like that's even if it's done at a very low power level and casually, sure, but that's what it be.
Cool. Yeah, I'm also equally on board with this. I think it just kind of helps define these Rule Zero conversations or just pregame conversations with finding people and finding a play group with Yeah, decks that
Yeah.
are of equal power level, and you don't end up with, you don't end up in that bracket 4, Taylor. We're going to make sure you don't get there.
Exactly. Thank God. Well, it gives you a place to play 2s and not have to be like playing 4s.
Right.
Because like back in the day, it's like this is kind of like my justification where it's like I always get like it's like, oh, well, I'm not really having a lot of fun when it's like I'm playing my 2s with 4s, and it's like, well, that's Commander. It's like it doesn't have to be, and it looks like it doesn't have to be. They've identified the worst part of it, and they've sectioned it off. Yeah. they've cut the rot.
So yeah, it's it'll be interesting to see how this goes, and yeah, should be good. So typically for our outro, Taylor, we do a Scryfall random spirit creature of the week, in which we go into Scryfall and you random until you hit a creature.
Okay.
You down?
I'm down.
I immediately Scryfall random into a creature. Let me know when you got one, and I'll let you kick it off.
Got one.
All right, what'd you get?
I got Dr. Julius Jumblemore.
What?
Yeah, you don't know Dr. Julius Jumblemore?
Oh my gosh, he's beautiful. He looks amazing.
Yeah, he looks very smart. Unfinity, unstable. He's every creature type. Or yeah, exactly. Whenever a host enters the battlefield under you may search your library and or graveyard, augment and combine it with its host. Okay. Very good.
Cool. So if you want to build
a 4-4
an unstable Selesnya commander deck.
Contraptions. Oh, well, I can't do contraptions. Oh no.
Oh no.
He just looks so smart, this doctor,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's holding like a is that a fishbowl? It's got some sort of weird frog guy in there.
Yeah, it looks like it.
Some sort of specimen.
I like his wings.
Yeah. Oh yeah, his wings are pretty nice.
His shark fins and his chicken feet.
Yeah, he's definitely every creature type.
He's a real looker. Yeah, he's a god. He's a coward.
I love it. Well, that's going to pair well perfectly with my Yoshin Soldier from Antiquities.
Yoshin Soldier.
It's beautiful Chris Rush art. It is a 1/4 artifact creature soldier for 3. And it just has vigilance.
All right.
Nothing to write home about, but the flavor text reads, after Krug was destroyed, while most of its defenders were at his side, Urza vowed that none of his allies would ever need to fear for their own defense again, even while laying siege to a city far from their homes.
How based Urza. It's very good of you. Classic Urza is a good guy, as everyone knows. He's a really good guy.
Love it. The other, one of the more...
Urza's not a good guy.
No, he's not. The Brothers War messed up a lot of stuff. The more recent printing has some pretty interesting art from Luca Zontini, but that flavor text reads, poets dream the verses of otherworldly stories. Artificers dream the blueprints of other planar artifacts. I love it.
How insightful. Magic the Gathering.
Magic the Gathering. Well, yeah, thank you so much, Taylor, for coming on and chatting about the brackets with me. I appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks for letting me spit. I definitely don't envy your job in editing. I definitely rambled a lot.
It's all good. I had a feeling this would be probably long and rambly, so.
Fair enough.
All right. Well, let me run through our outro here quick.
Go for it.
In the outro, we do a next episode's food for thought cast question. And so this is a section we typically do up top, which we completely missed as we jumped into this conversation. Basically, we pick a question, which we'll just do this week's now, or this episode's now, which Luke picked the question, what is your favorite colorless creature?
Oh. Well, it's definitely Metal Walker, but friends don't let friends play Metal Worker in any form. So
yeah,
definitely. Though Glaring Fleshraker has been doing a really good job at replacing him. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's the one I had written down. I had Walking Ballista and Glaring Fleshraker were my two. So
yeah, they're pretty up there. They're up there. Fuck my cat. Karn's pretty dope, but you know.
So what I'm going to let you come up with our next food for thoughtcast question for the next episode for Luke and I to answer. It can be
Is
anything.
It like philosophical? Anything.
It could be anything magic related is the asterisk.
Sure. What's more valuable, or what's valuable? What's the value of playing with friends at home versus playing at an LGS?
What's the value of playing with friends at home
versus playing in events at an LGS?
Interesting. Wow, that is a pretty it's
a heady one.
That's a thinker for sure.
It's a real question. Dr.
Julius Jumble.
It's a Dr. Julius Jumblemorph question for you right there.
Awesome. Well, yeah, Luke and I will answer that in the next episode. Thanks to our sponsors. We currently have none. If you'd like to sponsor the show, please reach out to us via email at wilddogspodcast@gmail.com. And also feel free to connect with us over on Twitter or Instagram at wilddogspod. Finally, as always, thanks to Johnny Bartlett for creating the intro and outro music. Until next time, Wild Dogs out.
Bye-bye.
Magic the Gathering. Gathering magic with my friends. Playing cool cards all the time. Tutoring